everybody, it's Tuesday, December 24th, 2024. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Show presented by Uber Eats. Get game day deals all season long. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio and Laquan Jones. And it's the day before the day. And by that, I mean the day before there are two games on your television set from the NFL on Netflix. Oh, and I guess Christmas, too. That's also a thing that is happening. Yeah, so this, I was going to say this is like a new experience, but we had Christmas Day games previously. It's just that Christmas didn't come on a Wednesday. That's the new part, right? I mean, are we prepared? Because, Florio, it just feels like now that the NFL is doing games on Christmas, like we're not going back.
Oh, we're never going back. I mean, look, like you said, in the past, I was at a Christmas party a couple years ago. It was on a Monday. All right, there's 3 games on. That's cool. It was on a weekend. There's games on. That's cool. On a Wednesday? Like, it's the one day that football should never be played on, and here we are. So, yeah, we're getting games whether you like it or not. Sorry, NBA, the NFL's here to stay. Christmas
Day used to be for NBA games and like C-tier college football bowl games, right? I mean, it was like the Poulan Weed Eater Independence Bowl or something like that was on Christmas Day. But yeah, Laquan, is there one game over the other? Because we're going to basically dive into the Christmas Day games and Thursday Night Football. Is there one of those two Christmas Day games that you are more excited about than the other?
Man, honestly, I want to see the Steelers. I want to see George Pickens back out there, lighten it up, because honestly, I miss the shiesty Black Air Force energy, man. Like, I need it back out there, and I want the Steelers to win. I want them to beat the Chiefs. Like, I don't want to see them have this perfect season. They got Hollywood Brown back. I don't want to see the Chiefs three-peat, so I want them to get a little bit of coal on Christmas Day from the Steelers.
Well, see, in that case, you should actually want the Chiefs to win this week. You want them to be as high and mighty going into the playoffs so that they suffer a monumental, because they're not going to be undefeated. They've already lost once. We can thank the Bills for that.
There's no perfect season.
We can thank the Bills for that. But, like, have them take a tumble and have it be more painful in the playoffs. That's really what you want. Like if you want to be a hater, like you got to see them rise before you see them fall. If you're going to get your Silky Johnson on this week or this year. So, anyway, we are going to dive into the two Christmas Day games. We're also going to dive into Thursday Night Football. We've got some hot starts and some hot takes for you as well. So, let's just get started with the two games on Christmas Day. Both of them can be seen on Netflix. The first one, Chiefs at the Steelers, 1 p.m. Eastern time is the kickoff for that one. Talked a little bit on Monday's show about Hollywood Brown and sort of how he fits in to the Chiefs wide receiver room that's gotten really crowded over the last few weeks, Florio. But if you had to pick one of the Chiefs pass catchers, and we can throw the tight ends in this as well, which one do you like the most against a Steelers defense that has been pretty stingy this year?
Xavier Worthy. I think he is underappreciated now. I know early in the year he was like the toy that they had that every so often they would break out for like a run play or something like that. But like, don't look now. He led them in routes ran this past week. Last week he had 11 targets, 7 catches, 65 yards. And a touchdown, nearly had a second touchdown, but couldn't get his second foot down. That's been an issue for him a little bit, but he's getting volume. And it's not just like downfield plays. It's the exact volume you want for him. It's either like a downfield target or it's a short, quick, like creative touch where he could just do what he's doing here, running with the ball in space and using that speed. So, look, I don't care how good a defense is, speed transcends, and Xavier Worthy, someone that I loved in the draft process, and I'm really excited. As much as I hate that he's a Chief, I'm really excited to watch him moving forward in his career.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think he's sort of the future. Him and a healthy Rashee Rice, right? When we see Rashee Rice back again in this offense, I think those guys are going to be the primary options going forward. But I was thinking about it, rewatching that game after Saturday, that, they've got Worthy and Juju is still there. I know Juju's not a big part of the offense, but he's there. DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown is now there. You still have to get the ball to Travis Kelce. Noah Gray keeps catching touchdowns. Justin Watson gets the occasional target somewhere in there as well. There's a lot going on. And that's before you talk about, guys like Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco and Samaje Perine getting the football. There's like so much going on in this Chiefs offense right now that it's hard to kind of put a finger on where you want.
You would think they're all healthy for the record that they have now. Like, you wouldn't think like Rashid Rice is done for the season due to friendly fire. Like, you would not think like, how are they doing this? No, seriously, how are they doing this? This has to be magic.
Devil magic. That's how they're doing it. Devil magic.
Witchcraft. Like,
It is straight up witchcraft is what this is for sure. Meanwhile, the Steelers are sort of doing it on, I don't know, bubblegum and happy thoughts, at least offensively. Like, defensively, they're good. The offense is just good enough. You mentioned George Pickens looks like he's going to be coming back. That's the expectation. He's going to be ready to go for Wednesday. So obviously we all know we like George Pickens, but Laquan, is there anybody else in that pass catching game that you like there for the Steelers this week?
Calvin Austin, man, he's been trying to like mirror what George Pickens brings to that offense and stretching the field. So, Russell Wilson, he's going to take those shots. And some of those big catches that he had, honestly, I'm like, yo, you need to get him the ball even more when George Pickens is there, because all the attention's going to be on him. And Calvin Austin's having an amazing season, man. He's definitely jumping on the bandwagon to being a guy that I will draft next year. He's one of those guys that you can have as your wide receiver 4 or 5 and then put him in there occasionally when the matchup is there, especially against a defense that gets cooked on the deep ball. So honestly, man, looking at him going into next year, he's one of those guys I definitely have on my radar.
Yeah, I mean, Calvin Austin's a guy that I really liked. He especially was getting love when there was no Pickens. I'm not sure if they both can coexist, because as much as Russ has done good things in real football, I do think Russell Wilson has been sort of underwhelming in fantasy. So I do think Austin does have some potential, but I think he also needs to break some tackles and get a big play in there, because I don't know that the volume's going to be what you want it to be. Do like Pat Freiermuth, though, just because the Chiefs have been kind of bad against tight ends pretty much all season long. So that's one to keep an eye on there. The other game that we have going on Christmas Day, it is the Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans. That one's set to kick off at 4:30 Eastern, and again, it is on Netflix. Laquan, I'll start with you on this one. Zay Flowers has been hot. He's had some really big games. He's had some meh games. Houston's been a really tough matchup for wide receivers. Can you trust Zay Flowers against this Texans secondary?
I don't know if we could trust, because honestly, this Texans secondary is like really under the radar good, man, and they're taking the ball away. But honestly, man, if I'm in the championship and he's got me here, those ups and downs, man, I'm going to put it to bed. This is literally MVP campaign season for Lamar Jackson, so he's going to be playing his best football. And honestly, Zay Flowers, he's electric. He gets open, he finds the open spaces, and then he creates after the catch. This is what he brings to the table. So I think with Lamar Jackson trying to go hard in this MVP campaign, he's going to be able to light it up.
Look, I think you like Zay Flowers because he is essentially the primary target in the passing game. And the way Lamar Jackson's throwing the football, it's hard to doubt any of those guys there. But every now and then we see the Rashad Bateman resurgence. Mark Andrews is getting his love, especially near the goal line. But I do think, especially on a week like this, I would take the shot, mostly because Lamar's playing so well, and give the shot to Zay Flowers in that one. On the other side, Florio, I've been talking about Joe Mixon the last couple of weeks because the schedule has not been very favorable to him. He's got the Ravens. The Ravens against the pass have struggled. We've been able to figure out that we can start pass catchers against them. Running backs have been a tough deal all year long. Can you trust Joe Mixon against this Baltimore front?
It's one of those situations where ideally I don't want to, but you probably have to, because are you going to sit him for like Amir Abdullah? I don't know, because I get it. Like last week, he struggled, even though he averaged over 4 yards per carry against the Chiefs, which was pretty impressive. But the one saving grace, I think, is as elite as the Ravens have been at stopping the run, they have struggled against pass-catching running backs. And we know that is an area where Joe Mixon can contribute, especially now with Tank Dell being done for the year, torn ACL, dislocated knee. It's like Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, and then like Robert Woods was third in targets last week. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot more dump-offs to Joe Mixon. So again, not someone that I'm like, yes, you have to start him, but you'd have to have a pretty good option to get away just because of the volume that Joe Mixon could see in this one.
And that's sort of where I am with Joe Mixon, is that it's hard to get away from him. He's been so good for the majority of the season, and there really isn't anybody there that you're worried is going to take a lot of opportunities away from Mixon. So that means he's going to be in a lot of lineups. It's just that I go into the week maybe with some lowered expectations about where he is. The ceiling gets a little bit lower for me with Mixon just because of the matchup on the other side. But in terms of opportunity, I think it's going to be what it always has been for Joe Mixon for sure. All right, those are the Christmas Day games. We'll get to Thursday Night Football a little bit later. In the meantime, it is time for Is It In You, fueled by Gatorade. This continues to be a nebulous segment that we have somehow in our own minds decided means sleepers for the week, but, we never got any clear marching instructions. So, however you define this topic here, Laquan, who is the player you'd like to speak on?
I think Jaylen Warren might be a sneaky sleeper. I think he's going to surprise some folks in this matchup against the Chiefs because, honestly, there's been some opportunities for running backs that have been involved in the passing game, and that's exactly where Jaylen Warren fits the bill. You look at Chuba Hubbard's game, Alvin Kamara, James Cook, just to name a few guys. Even Justice Hill had double-digit fantasy points going up against this Chiefs defense. Listen, it may not be on the ground for him, but he's been running a ton of routes. He's honestly taken up that role, and he's keeping Najee Harris at bay. In the last 3 games, he's outsnapped Najee Harris 57% to 35%. So honestly, he is not even a real worry. And when it comes to routes ran, Arthur Smith had himself a little game to himself having Cordero Patterson going out there catching passes, but he's running just as many routes as Najee Harris. So it's like one of those things that I have a clear mind that Jaylen Warren's going to be able to show up, show out, and hopefully Pickens is back in the lineup as well so they can create more scoring opportunities because Russell Wilson needs him back to find his way back in the end zone as well. And I think Jaylen Warren adds to that.
I know there's been talk in fantasy circles about, creating like a team running back position, right? Where you can just draft, say, like you want 49ers running backs, which means you'd have like 7 guys on your team based on this year. But like if
not
that
Patrick Taylor.
Not Patrick Taylor, no, not you. But if we were to do that, it feels like the Steelers would be a perfect test case for it because if somehow Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren could like form like Voltron, they would be one really good running back instead of 2 mediocre ones in fantasy. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Florio, who is your player for this section of the show?
Dalton Schultz, who all year I have had as a sit in Stardom Sit-em when he has been featured there. And even when Steph Diggs went out, it was like, no. This isn't like last year because last season it took an injury to one of the top 2 receivers for Dalton Schultz to get going. This year it needed to happen twice. And unfortunately it has. So we're at the point we were last year when Dalton Schultz was a very useful fantasy tight end where it's only one alpha wide receiver out there that he has to compete with targets with. And in this past week, 8 targets was second most behind Nico Collins, 5 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. Now he gets the Ravens, who as of late have done a better job containing tight ends, but on the year, they're still in the top 3 in yards allowed to the position. Could be a game where the Texans are in catch-up mode, or it's a back and forth kind of game. They have to throw a lot. So Dalton Schultz, someone that I was strongly avoiding all year long, is someone that I'm strongly advocating for in championship week. Bizarro season comes full circle.
Yeah, it really does. No, I mean, you're absolutely right because right now all the circumstances point to Dalton Schultz being a big part of the passing game there. You mentioned the matchup. You mentioned the fact that there are guys that are gone now that were there at the beginning of the year. So, back in the summer when we thought that C.J. Stroud was going to look again this year like he did last year, we thought, oh, sure, he can support all these pass catches. It'll be fine. That turned out to not be the case. But as one by one, fate has peeled away the other options there for C.J. Stroud and the Texans. Suddenly, Dalton Schultz, he's the meme of the guy sitting on the couch, like pointing at me. Who, me? Like that's Dalton Schultz at this point in the season.
He's a chill guy.
Since we're talking tight ends, I guess I should, open up the Friars Club and say Patrick. Maybe it is Patrick. I don't know. Pat Fryermuth is the guy that I'm in on this week because I mentioned earlier in the show the Chiefs have really struggled against the tight end position. And for Russell Wilson, he really does like getting the tight end position involved. Now, mind you, I said that Russell has not been great statistically. It's been just fine. It's worked for the Steelers. It's helped them get wins. But aside from chucking the ball downfield and saying, bleep it, George Pickens is down there somewhere, we're starting to see Freiermuth get more and more involved. Now, mind you, I don't expect huge things out of Freiermuth. This is somewhat a function of just the tight end position, because after your top, say, 4 guys or so, it falls off really, really quickly. And you're into streaming territory really, really quickly. And I think that's sort of where you see Freiermuth. But this is a matchup that I think can allow him to prosper. As long as they can protect against that pass rush and Russell can get the ball out, I think you're going to see George Pickens get his targets, and I think you're going to see Freiermuth get some love as well. So if you are still streaming tight ends, or maybe you're just playing daily fantasy, I think Pat Freiermuth has a little bit of value for you this week. We're going to take a break, come back with some hot starts, look at Thursday Night Football as well. That's next on the NFL Fantasy Football Show. Time for hot starts presented by Uber Eats. We definitely have more of clear marching orders on this one. Who's your hot start for the week, Laquan?
Keenan Allen against the Seahawks, man. Honestly, he has been on a straight heater. The last 5 games, 5 touchdowns, 20 fantasy points per game. This dude is looking like the alpha wide receiver for this Bears offense, but that doesn't really matter because all the other guys could eat as well. I mean, 60% of the passes are what their offense are living on, where he could spread the ball around and have these guys feast. We just saw the Vikings have their way with this Seahawks defense. They are suspect. I've been screaming it all season long. So what do you think with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison both finding the end zone? This looks like a Keenan Allen big game. This has been his strongest stretch all season long. So I'm looking for big points from Keenan Allen. And DJ Moore might have himself a good game as well.
No, I'm with you. I think this is another Keenan Allen week. I mean, he's been a really nice security blanket for Caleb. I think that keeps rolling this week as well. Florio, who's your hot start?
I know I spoke up Xavier Worthy earlier in the show. I'll take it a step further. I think Xavier Worthy is the only Chief that you could start with confidence. Patrick Mahomes, I know he had a good game last week, but it was the same old usual passing numbers. He just had a rushing touchdown. Travis Kelce, I think it's 6 straight games in a row now he's been in single digits. The running backs are taken away from each other too much. All 3 of them are getting involved. I know we could get excited for what Marquise Brown did, but second game back in a short week, I don't think I want to start that in fantasy championship. D-Hop, you can't trust right now. So despite being 14-1, I think there is one player, and it is a rookie wide receiver who was unusable at the start of the year. It is just such a weird season for everyone in fantasy, but especially for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, Worthy's really starting to come together. It was a slow start, which I guess as a rookie should be kind of expected, but he's really picked things up in the back part of the season. My hot start's going to be Nico Collins, who's been a great start pretty much all year long for both the Houston Texans and fantasy managers. Unfortunately, now the Texans having to go the rest of the way without Tank Dell. They had already lost Stephon Diggs earlier in the season, so Collins, already the number 1 option for C.J. Stroud, now gets that much more attention in the passing game. We continue to pick on the Ravens secondary. We have done it all season long. See no reason to stop now. I think in order for the Texans to stay in this one, I think the Ravens are going to score points. I think the Texans are going to have to try to match. So Nico Collins, an easy start for me in Week 17. Look, he's probably a big part of the reason you made it to Week 17 in your fantasy leagues. No reason to try to back away from it now against the Baltimore Ravens. So that's talking about Wednesday. Let's focus on Thursday, where we do have Thursday Night Football, the Seahawks and the Bears. You can see that at 8:15 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. Kenneth Walker came back. We saw him for the Seahawks. The Bears' run defense has been very good. So, Florio, if I tell you Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, you going either, neither, or both this week?
I'm going Kenneth Walker, and that's it. And it's unfortunate for Zach Charbonnet for as well as he played with Kenneth Walker sidelined. And then Seattle not only named him the starter, they named him a team captain before yesterday's game. And you know how they rewarded him for that? They gave him the same amount of snaps as Kenny McIntosh, 2 fewer carries, and 1 more target. He had half as many yards as Kenny McIntosh did. Meanwhile, Kenneth Walker, only 8 carries, but he had 8 targets, and that really propels him up. They both kind of saw work near the goal line. The one knock I have on Kenneth Walker is he's not a good goal line runner. I've seen enough of him getting stuffed repeatedly this year to be able to, and over the past years to tell you that. But he's explosive and he's getting the volume. So you start him, and unfortunately for Zach Charbonnet, it's like, thank you for your service. the Seahawks don't really want to trust you, how could we in fantasy?
You know, I mean, this is another one where if we could do team running backs, Seahawks running backs, we could somehow, match up Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. We'd be doing pretty well when it comes to our fantasy running back spot. So you sort of answered this, Laquan, but I'm gonna kind of maybe tweak it a little bit. I was gonna say the wheel of Bears receivers. Where are you putting your chip? You already talked about Keenan Allen, so I just ask you, do you see a scenario where you'd feel comfortable with, say, Rome Odunze? DJ Moore, I think you're starting, but Rome Odunze, would you feel comfortable plugging him in anywhere?
So funny enough, since week 9, you have Keenan Allen leading them in targets and yards. Then you have DJ Moore leading them in catches. But the one category where Rome Odunze just has the upside every single week, he's leading them in red zone targets since week 9. So you're looking at this basically wide receivers where they should all fuse into one Megatron wide receiver where you have them having their roles in this offense. And Rome Odunze having that touchdown upside, he makes me like an appealing flex option for me. And honestly, this is going to be a defense. Like I said before, they're suspects. So he might have some upside to find the end zone as well this week.
Look, Odunze really has been boom or bust, right? Either you get a couple of touchdowns, you get a touchdown or so from him, or you're looking at like 6 points out of Rome Odunze. So It really has been up or down with him. But I'm with you I think Keenan Allen is kind of the guy if I had to pick a Bears receiver this week. I think there's brighter days for Odunze. I think he and Caleb Williams are building something, but I don't know that I trust him, especially not in championship week. I'm not trusting Rome Odunze.
And look, a little saving grace for your boy Marcus and Bears fans. 9 games losses this year without an interception thrown by Caleb Williams. Most losses ever without an interception in NFL history.
I mean, look, there are moments where it's like, okay, this is really painful to watch and it hurts my heart. But there are moments where like, okay, yeah, this is the Caleb we thought we would see. And I think once they start to build, they get a head coach in there and they kind of start to build a program. I think we're going to see that a little more often next year. I don't think that's a hot take. But it is now time for Hot Takes, presented by Frank's Red Hot. As we close out the show, Laquan, get a little spicy for us, please.
Listen, this is a hot take. He may not be in your starting lineups for your championship, but CJ Stroud is going to have the best fantasy performance he's had all season long. He's coming for bench because, listen, we saw how emotional he was and how much of a brotherhood this team is with Tank Dell going down. I think there's opportunity for him to go out there and get a W for his boy, his best friend, his brother, and go out there and get this Ravens defense secondary guessing if it's going to Nico, if it's going to Joe Mixon, is it Dalton Schultz, whoever the case may be. Listen, this Ravens defense, they're allowing the most completions of 10 plus yards. So therefore, we know how aggressive CJ Stroud can be of going downfield. So I'm expecting some big plays from him and showing up and showing out for championships.
I know this is going to sound really simplistic, but it really is about the offensive line in Houston. If they can give him a clean pocket, give him time, I saw really good things from him last week. It's the problem that the offensive line has struggled. He's been under pressure, and that's when bad things tend to happen. Again, I know that's a simplistic view of things, but it also tends to be kind of how the Texans.
It's also a fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really how it goes. Florio, what's your hot take for the week?
That Seattle's wide receiver 1 is going to give you 20 fantasy points, but it's not the wide receiver you might be thinking of because their new wide receiver 1 is Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I don't see how you can really argue this right now. He has 8 straight games with 11 or more fantasy points. In that stretch, he is averaging 20 fantasy points per game. Look at the volume that he is seeing each week. He had 12 targets this past week, 12 targets last week. He has numerous games in this stretch, 4 of them actually, with 11 or more targets. He is the first read on the majority of plays. Like DK is just the big play threat guy on the other side, but JSN is the guy they run the offense through. And the Bears, they've struggled against the pass as of late, so I think JSN eats, and I think he stamps himself as a league winner this year.
He has taken Tyler Lockett's whole swag, including usurping DK Metcalf as the wide receiver 1 there in Seattle for sure.
Shout out Ryan Grubb.
My hot take, other side of that same game, that Caleb Williams goes for 20-plus points for the second straight week. Call this sort of no stats, just vibes, or maybe mild stats, mostly vibes. every time Caleb has scored 20 points, he has backed it up with another 20-point game, right? This would be his 6th 20-point game of the season. They all come back to back, right? It's like Little Caesars pizza. You get 2 for 1 when it comes to 20-point games for Caleb Williams this season. I think he gets it done against that Seattle secondary that we've mentioned has been struggling lately, whether it's through Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, maybe even DeAndre Swift. Who knows? I think Caleb Williams is going to get it done for fantasy managers in championship week, and it will be a Merry Christmas for all. And that is it. We are done. We appreciate you hanging out with the NFL Fantasy Football Show. You know the drill. Tell 2 friends to tell 2 friends. Rate, review, and remember, he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. Creepy bastard. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will talk to you again real soon.